Hi everyone, today I want to talk about Jhumpa Lahiri's memoir, In Other Words, which is essentially a love story of her trying to learn the Italian language, which she eventually learns when she moves to Rome, Italy, and immerses herself first. This book is published both but in bilingual languages. So half of it is in Italian and the other half um is in English. So it's published kind of like a translated like poetry collection, how one side has a translation and the other side has the English text. So that's interesting. And she discusses various themes, similar themes that she does in her previous novels and short story collections, which is themes of identity, alienation, and belonging. Um, and this book starts from the beginning of her first going on a trip with her sister to Italy and completely falling head over heels in love with the culture and the language. And with her, and during that trip, all she had with her was a dictionary that she took along with her in terms of picking up words or wanting to translate. So she would carry this dictionary around, and that dictionary along follows her throughout her journey as well. So it's basically her companion throughout her learning. And there are, and you're following her and her journey, trying to really consume the language, first trying to learn the grammar and all the different, things, that all the like fundamental things that you have to learn when you first learn a language. And then eventually one day she decides to move to Rome, Italy, for a year, and really immerse herself in this place where she doesn't know anyone, she doesn't know the language, but she's determined, and that's amazing. And within this, she also brings in various metaphors to portray her relationship with the language and wanting to learn it. Like, we see the metaphor of her and the lake, which she uses often. There is even a moment where she references other authors' works, mainly Italian authors, but she also referenced in depth Ovid's Metamorphoses, and how she relates to the main character in that in various forms. But going back to those themes of identity, alienation, and belonging, she also, this is a book about language, and she talks about how she feels alienation, not only in Italy, where she's, an Indian woman, and she's already she talks about how she'll never fully know Italian. She'll never, it's always going to be a journey. She's never going to really master the language, no matter how long she learns it. And she also talks about how she not only feels alienation in the Italian language, but she also feels alienation with English, which is her main language, and also Bengali, which is her first language that she learned from her parents, because her parents were immigrants who moved to the States, and she first learned Bengali as a child, and then she talks about how she was forcefully learned English and how that was traumatic for her, which is for a lot of people that can be the experience for people learning English. And she talks about how she never felt like she belonged in any of those languages, and she explains situations within each, and how there were moments in America where somebody telling her, "Hey, don't you speak English?" and whatever, and that was, very traumatic for her. And there was even a moment where she talks about how in Italy there was a moment where she's at a shop, and and she tries to explain to a shop worker in Italian about wanting to get some clothes for her daughter, and then when her husband, who's Spanish, comes, and she explains that how she's more passionate and wanting to learn the language and is more versed in Italian, and her husband, who knows little, that the shop owner mistakes her husband for being Italian, and him and her learning the language from him, and that, like, throws her off and really gets her angry, because in her mind she thinks that she's saying how she's the one that's in love with the language. She's the one that's trying. She's the one that's learning it and is more fluent with it. And yet, because of her physical appearance, because of the way she looks, she's always going to be seen as an outsider because she's an Indian woman. And people are never going to think, oh, she doesn't know Italian. Everyone just assumes to speak to her in English. And that really angers her. And she feels that, like I said before, in America, because of the way she looks, people don't assume that she's fluent in English. And she also talks about how in India, people don't assume that she can speak Bengali, and so even her family members, they even try to speak to her in English when she can, respond and fully understand Bengali, but they choose to, like, speak to her in English because, they just see her as an American, and because she grew up in America. And just, how she explains that, like, she never felt like she belonged in any of them, and she talks about how she feels like she does belong with Italian, like she felt a home there, even though in her mind she's like, oh, I shouldn't, in some ways, because she's not from there, she has no ties to it. So in a way it's kind of odd, but like she said, like, she fell in love with the language, and she couldn't stop, and that type of passion that she has to really learn it is, like, really admirable. And the steps that she takes to do that is amazing. And she also interweaves within this memoir. There are also moments where she puts in, like, the first short story that she wrote in Italian, and later on she also includes the first short story in Italian that was first published in Italy, which is inside. And those are great as well, just to see, what she's written. And she also talks about how she wants to continue writing in Italian, and how she doesn't feel at home anymore writing in English. Like, she doesn't want to, and she doesn't feel the need to. So I think that's great, because in the beginning she also talks about how she could have translated this, because this translation is by Anne Goldstein. Anne Goldstein, who, we've also heard that she also translated Elena Ferrante, which is getting a lot of play now. And Jhumpa could have translated this, but she didn't want to, and she didn't want to go. And she also explains it more in the introduction of this book on why she didn't translate this book. But yeah, I think this book is great. In some ways I felt like in some parts of it, I felt like it was a little repetitive, some of the stuff she was saying, but overall I think it was great. I mean, it's the first of her works where, she speaks in the first person, it's autobiographical, like she's talking about her self experiences, versus her other books where it's just characters. Yeah, I love it. I love the themes she discusses. I love people's journeys with language, especially people that hold multiple languages. I love that. I love, I just loved reading about her journey through it, and her passion, and how sometimes it was, it was difficult, and how she feels like, it's always gonna be, learning all the time, which is great. Yeah, I just really, really enjoyed it. And, I read it fairly quickly. It's fairly easy read, very quick, and I definitely recommend it. So yeah, let me know if you're interested in reading this book. And also, since it was a 2016 release, what other books maybe you're excited to read this year that are coming out? And yeah, I'll talk to you guys later. Bye.